When I say Baltimore Colts, you're probably picturing Johnny Unitas, right? The crew cuts, the black high tops, an absolute dynasty. But what if I told you that wasn't the original Baltimore Colts? Nope, there was another team first. A ghost team, really, whose story is one of the wildest, most bizarre tales in the entire history of football.
So yeah, you think you've got the whole Colts story down pat? You probably know about the move to Indy in the middle of the night, but I'm willing to bet you don't know about this team, the first one.
Just take a look at this. It's the Colts, sure, but not the ones you know. This team was like a firework. It shot up, burned incredibly bright for a second, and then just vanished, all in 4 chaotic seasons. And the legacy they left behind is it's almost unbelievable. All right, let's get right into it. We are talking about Baltimore's forgotten first team, a true ghost franchise of the NFL. 4 years, that is all they got, 1947 to 1950. They showed up, they played some football, and then they were gone. I mean, how does an entire professional football team just disappear? Well, it all started with another team's spectacular failure. And this is not some glorious origin story, okay? No, the original Colts were basically born from the smoldering wreckage of another franchise's complete and total disaster. Everybody, meet the Miami Seahawks. They were a charter team in a brand new league trying to compete with the NFL, the AAFC. And in 1946, they played one single disastrous season. And here's where you can really see the disaster taking shape. Get a load of this number. A little over 49,000 fans. That wasn't for one game. That was for all 7 of their home games combined. We're talking less than 8,000 people a game. The city of Miami was, to put it lightly, not interested. And you know that lack of interest? It has a very real price tag. The team managed to rack up $350,000 in debt in 1 year. That was an astronomical amount of money back then. The whole thing went bankrupt. So the league itself had to step in and basically repossess the team. And that, right there, is where Baltimore enters the picture. A group of businessmen bought the team's leftover assets for pennies on the dollar, moved the whole operation to Maryland, and just like that, they became the Baltimore Colts. So the team gets a fresh start, but their time in the AFC was, well, it was mostly a struggle. Mostly. But for one brief, shining moment, they actually looked like they might have a real shot at something. And this table just perfectly illustrates the roller coaster they were on. Look at this. In 47 and 49, they were just awful, winning a grand total of 3 games in those 2 seasons. But squeezed right there in the middle is 1948, a perfectly average 7-7 season. And get this, in a really weak division, that perfectly average 7-7 record was actually good enough to tie for first place. They made a division playoff game. Now they lost it to the Buffalo Bills, but still, for a brief moment, there was some real hope in Baltimore. And it turns out that one single season of being just okay was the most important thing that ever happened to them. Because when the AAFC and the NFL decided to finally merge, it set the stage for one of the biggest, weirdest upsets in the history of pro football business. So by 1949, it was pretty clear both leagues were losing money fighting each other. The only way to survive was to merge. The powerful NFL agreed it would absorb 3 teams from the AAFC. Now, the Cleveland Browns and the San Francisco 49ers, they were dominant, total no-brainers. But who was going to get that third and final spot? The choice seemed completely obvious. In one corner, you had the Buffalo Bills, a team that was always good, had a strong, loyal fan base in its own market. And in the other corner, the Baltimore Colts, a team with 1 mediocre season, 2 terrible ones, awful attendance, and they were sitting right in the backyard of an existing NFL team. The logical choice was Buffalo, hands down. It wasn't even close.
And that was exactly the problem. The owner of the Washington Redskins, a guy named George Preston Marshall, saw Baltimore as his turf. He absolutely did not want another team just up the road, and he put his foot down. He blocked the move.
So what happened? A good old-fashioned backroom deal. The Colts ownership literally paid Marshall $150,000 to drop his objection, a straight-up payment to buy a spot in the league. I mean, can you imagine something so raw happening in today's multi-billion-dollar NFL? Just like that, money talked. The weaker Baltimore Colts were in, and the more deserving Buffalo Bills were out. So, they'd pulled it off. A long shot, but they were in the big leagues. But that dream of NFL stability? Yeah, it turned into an absolute nightmare almost overnight. In their one and only NFL season, the Colts were just completely and totally outmatched. They finished with a pathetic record of 1 win and 11 losses, dead last in their conference. And those financial problems that had haunted them from the very beginning, they've finally caught up. Facing yet another crisis, the team president sold the entire franchise, the players, the equipment, the whole shebang, back to the NFL for just $50,000. And with that, the team was officially shut down. So that's the end of the story, right? A failed team, a historical footnote. Well, here's where the story gets really, really interesting. This ghost franchise somehow left behind a surprisingly massive mark on the game of football. I mean, let's just recap this wild ride. In 4 short years, they went from being the ashes of the Seahawks to a playoff appearance to a controversial entry into the NFL and then to being completely dissolved. It is a stunningly fast rise and fall.
But here's the truly amazing part of this story. It's the talent that was on that awful 1-11 team. This is quarterback Ya Tittle, a future Hall of Famer. And incredibly, he wasn't the only legend on that roster.
Just try to wrap your head around this for a second. That 1950 Colts team, one of the worst teams in the history of the league, had 3 future Pro Football Hall of Famers. Defensive tackle Art Donovan, and not 1 but 2 legendary quarterbacks in George Blandana and Y.A. Tittle. It's one of the greatest what-ifs in sports history. Imagine all that talent on a team that just completely fell apart.
And here is the final and maybe my favorite piece of their legacy. Even after the team folded, the fans in Baltimore didn't give up. The official fan club and, you gotta love this, the marching band, they stayed together. They kept campaigning for a new team, and their passion is the real reason the NFL brought a new Colts franchise to Baltimore in 1953, the one that would go on to become a true legend. So in the end, this strange, chaotic, forgotten team holds a very unique distinction. They were the last franchise the NFL ever permanently shut down. The league today is a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. It's a fortress of stability. But the story of the first Colts is a wild reminder of a much more volatile time. And it really has to make you wonder, in a league this powerful, could something like that ever happen again?